interested in following suit. So I appreciate the turnout. This morning, got a lot of things to cover this morning, especially when it comes to a lot of hard work that's keeping our community members safe. I know a lot of you remember back, a week or so ago, actually, it wasn't maybe a week, it was about March 25th, you had several fire stations that were, they had vehicles of firemen, excuse me. Better than tomatoes, I guess, that people are throwing phones at the lectern here. Back on March 25th, we had several fire stations that had cars that were broken into. These were cars belonging to some of the firemen, and we put some information out there trying to find the person involved in breaking into these cars. And I was talking with the Metro Division Captain, John Thomas, a little earlier, and he talked about how, you know, these are firemen that were just there working, right, going to work, trying to protect us all, and to come back out after their shift was done and find that their cars were broken into and their items missing. Concerning, violating, unacceptable, but some tremendous work went into bringing some resolution to those cases, and that's why we have Captain Thomas here this morning to talk about some developments that we have in those cases, one of which includes an arrest. So don't want to outrun my coverage or steal too much of the captain's thunder, but I'd like to introduce John Thomas with the Metro Division. And we need Colleen back her phone.
Thank you.
Should we wait till this is over? Or? Yeah.
Morning, everybody. I appreciate y'all being here and getting this information out for us, because getting information out about these types of crimes to the public leads us to arrest and makes for a safer community. So I appreciate everything that the media does. First off, as Rob said, over the weekend, 3 fire stations, CFD fire stations, had cars broken into. CMPD immediately started looking for these suspects as we try to knock these sprees out as soon as we see them. And thanks to a 911 call by an observant member of the community, just for a suspicious vehicle early in the morning, Monday morning around 7 a.m. in the 1800 block of Greers Grove Road, officers were able to encounter 3 subjects in a car of an apartment, or excuse me, in a car in an apartment parking complex. Once they approached the car, you know, just kind of warning bells were ringing if the officers there. Approached the subjects, started getting information from them, heard something hit the ground. Suspects started running. They were able to detain 1 subject, Zacharias Lee, and through other means of identification, identify another subject who ran, who dropped a gun as he ran, and we found 1 more gun in the car, Dalton Hopkins. Through the work and through serial numbers, these were connected back to these fire station break-ins over the weekend. Both of these subjects have a lengthy arrest history, and both are convicted felons. We are still looking for Mr. Dalton Hopkins, and we will be getting you the wanted poster on him. We consider him a dangerous individual with a history of not only breaking and enterings, but of robbery as well. So anything you could do to push that out and have the community call us in, we'd really appreciate the help on that. Like I said, this is due to some good work by officers, but great work by the community. We often talk at our meetings and when we're talking with the public about anytime you see something suspicious, please call us. People often say, well, I don't know what's suspicious, you know, what are they doing? When you see it, you know it. And that's what helped us with this person calling 911, and a really great arrest was made. We have 1 offender who we consider, you know, a repeat criminal in custody, and another person that we've obtained a great deal of warrants on that we will soon get off the streets, because criminals like this, they don't go just one time and break into a few cars. They're going to go out there, they're going to keep breaking into cars and possibly do other more violent crimes until we can get them off the streets. So we really do need your help on this.
Questions for Captain Thomas?
I guess it goes without saying, Captain, that these cars were unattended, and the firemen, were they out on calls? Were these guys watching to see if the firemen took a call and then?
Right, that's what we've seen in instances like this in the past. Many times they wait until the CFD personnel are out, you know, doing their job, which is a dangerous job, working for the community, and these thieves take advantage of it when they see that the fire guys are out. Even with a spree we had, I believe it was a little over a year ago, making false calls to lure the fire personnel out of their offices. So it's disturbing to us. Like I said, these guys are out there protecting the public, and someone takes advantage of that. CFD has improved the security features of their lots to include cameras, lot gates, everything. But as you know, no facility is completely secure. That's why we take these very seriously and try to stop these sprees as soon as they happen.
Captain, 2 arrested, right?
We've got 1 arrest. And,
We're looking for.
right, the Zacharias Lee was arrested on scene. He was the registered owner of the car. And in surveillance video we had from the crimes, that car was observed leaving the scene, and the two people that we've identified, or one arrested and one identified so far, were seen in the surveillance photos. Mr. Dalton Hopkins is the one outstanding, and right now he has 14 warrants.
And can you tell me how many cars, I'm sorry,
Oh,
how many vehicles were broken in?
I don't have the exact number. It was multiple at each station.
just to clarify on the luring, you know, when they call them, was that happening in this situation, these recent cases, or was that the previous ones?
It's a mixture. Some of them, they were at the house, and some of them, they were out on calls. With the previous spree, it was almost entirely every one.
But, I'm sorry, were the actual suspects calling in false calls?
No,
Oh, okay.
not on this one.
Were there, you mentioned, you have surveillance photos, so I take it that those fire stations were also the ones that got cameras?
Yes,
Was it last year, I think it was?
yes.
Are we gonna be able to see the video?
Probably some still shots we have ready. We're gonna get out with the wanted poster and a release showing the crime itself in at least one of the stations.
What kinds of items were taken?
Laptops, a couple of firearms, we recovered 2 of those, some other personal items.
Were the cars locked?
Some were, some weren't.
And these weren't gated, right? Like some
These were
cars-
gated.
So how did
They climbed secure areas, yes.
Okay, appreciate it, Captain. Thank you. We'll go ahead and We'll go ahead and get that information out. We just have a couple of little housekeeping items that we have to take care of, and to the captain's point, we'll push those photos, one of which includes one of the people we're looking for in that case, and we'd ask you to push that out to our community. Hopefully, somebody recognizes who this person is, and we could bring him into custody in the short order. Yesterday afternoon, a release went out, I want to say late afternoon yesterday, concerning a serial B&E suspect who was arrested. This person just doing a number on our community dating back to the fall of 2017, just breaking into homes when people were off at work, stealing computers and jewelry. A lot of work had gone into bringing this person, Ivory Lavonda Chapel, into custody through CMPD and our partnering agency, York County Sheriff's Office. I want to go ahead and bring Lieutenant J.D. Furr up here to kind of walk you through that. I know a lot of members of the press had some additional questions about that case and those cases, and just how this whole thing developed, and I think Lieutenant Furr would be able to walk you through this thing a little bit more articulately than us. So without further delay, Lieutenant Furr.
Morning. So last fall, there was a series of B&Es, predominantly in South Charlotte, and the detectives did what good detectives do. They started sending emails and talking to one another and sharing the information that was collected during these B&E incidents. Also information that was collected from obviously talking to the victims and any potential witnesses. And they eventually developed Ivory Chapel as a suspect in these cases. On March 13th, CRU officers in the Independence Division spotted Chapel operating a vehicle and attempted to stop him. He fled from the officers in that vehicle, struck a couple of cars, eventually jumped and ran from the vehicle and was apprehended and transferred to the Mecklenburg County Jail. So that investigation continued with all the B&Es and the collaboration between the divisions. And on March 14th, the day after Chapel was arrested here in Mecklenburg County, York County hotel employees, where Chapel was under the control of a hotel room, started to clear out that hotel room because Chapel was no longer there, had not made payment. And they noticed items in the hotel room which they suspected to be stolen. So they contacted the York County Sheriff's Office. When York County arrived, they looked into the items, they did their investigation, and they realized that these items were connected to burglaries out of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. So they contacted Charlotte-Mecklenburg, the agencies, the detectives in those agencies started sharing that information and working through identifying those items, identifying the victims that belonged to those items, and they were able to clear a case. And from that case, they were able to put together all the information they had in the other investigations based on very distinct patterns to clear 8 additional cases for a total of 9 cases. That was 21 warrants that were issued yesterday, and they were served on Chappell when he was in custody in Mecklenburg County. He has since been transferred to Moore County, and there's an agency there, the Southern Pines Police Department, that had burglary warrants on him as well. So, just going through my notes here. Just wanted to say that this is an ongoing investigation. There are the detectives that were in charge of these cases in South Providence and Independence divisions are working with other burglary detectives around the city. We have identified possibly as many as a dozen more cases that could be connected. So this is an ongoing investigation, and I want to commend the work that all the burglary detectives did, the collaboration, and then also thank the agencies that worked with us outside of Mecklenburg County, York County Sheriff's Office, and the Southern Pines Police Department. I want to thank them for their help and their cooperation, and also want to pass along some tips to the viewers in regards to residential B&Es. When you're away from your home, obviously you want to employ all the security measures, locking doors and windows, having an alarm monitoring service. You want to be sure to communicate with your neighbors, make sure that they know who belongs at your home, the vehicles that belong at your home, as well as you want to know your neighbors and what belongs at their homes. And then also in regards to these crimes, there was a lot of jewelry taken. And one thing that we wanted to pass along, and something that we've always talked about in the past, and that is you want to identify your property, mark your property with owner-applied numbers, such as the driver's license number, so that those things can easily be tracked if they are pawned. But in regards to jewelry, you know, we all have cameras on our cell phones now. I think it's a really good idea. We think it's a really good idea to take photos of jewelry and keep that on file. So in the event that you are victimized, the police could have that to match up to any pawned items.
So, questions for Lieutenant Burke?
Hey, Lieutenant, can you talk a little bit about, like, this guy seems to be a poster boy for someone basically tracking across the area with a footprint all over committing these crimes. He didn't just stay in your area or in South or anything like that. Like, the whole city was this playground, so to speak.
So,
Is that something that is that typical in burglaries?
Not to this degree. You know, it's not something we see every day. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's not typical. I mean, I'm sure that in the past, from one jurisdiction to another, there have been incidents that have, you know, raised to this level in regards to a serial burglar, but it's not something you see every day.
Lieutenant, I hear you had a pretty unique MO that helped you sort of piece this together. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I know some information's already been shared with the media and has been put out to the public, so you know, I would rather sit on that if I could, but I know it's already out there. So one thing that we were looking at in these cases is that in 9 of the cases there were like a bleach product sprayed on the crime scene. And one thing I can say about how distinguishable that was is we were going back and looking at cases, residential B&Es, in our jurisdiction, Charlotte-Mecklenburg, going back to November of last year, 2017, and we came up with 1,867 reported incidents, and out of all of those incidents, only 9 cases matched that MO.
So when you saw that, pretty good idea.
Obviously it flew, yeah.
You might have been there.
what's that all about? Why do you spray bleach?
It could
Is it
deteriorate.
Like the calling card, you flood the basement?
It could compromise the crime scene. It could, you know, it could keep crime scene officers from collecting fingerprints and, you know, other things such as that we would, you know, collect to hopefully solve a crime.
Can you send out photos of the items you guys recovered?
The photos, we've been working with the victims, matching, you know, showing them the photos and you know, matching them up with victims, but as far as sending out photos of like jewelry and stuff to the media, I'm sorry, I'm not following that.
No, just to show some of the items recovered.
I think what Lieutenant Fergus, you indicated that detectives are working with all the victims, if anybody's been victimized, to contact their detective, their respective detective,
Right,
to determine if their property's been recovered. Is that what we were saying earlier?
Yes, absolutely. If you feel like, you were a victim of this criminal, and you maybe have yet to report a crime and you have some items stolen, then, you could certainly contact the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. Also, if you have already reported an incident and maybe there was something at that scene that matched this particular style or MO, then you would want to be in contact with your detective or investigating officer to continue to work with collaborating that information, pairing up photos and other evidence.
Lieutenant, we appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank you. Thanks. Great work, sir. Just to dovetail a little bit off that, no imminent plans, Colleen, to put anything out with regard to any of the evidence collected or recovered that is unfortunately that's being processed through property control and is considered evidence at this time. So that's what your question was, if we were going to stage a little inventory of some of the items that were recovered. There's no imminent plans to do that. So just getting back to the Captain Thomas situation again, just stand by. They're working through some photos right now that they'll be able to distribute, looking for that wanted suspect, and hopefully you'll be able to push that out. And before we get to rocking and rolling, we're, I guess, in the vein of discussing work and great work. And, I think that you don't have to look any further than last night over on East Crest Drive. Eastway Division officers out there. You had a house that was shot into last night just before 10 o'clock. You had 4 kids in that house. House is shot into. One of the children, a 12-year-old boy, shot in the arm. Not only is he shot in the arm, it strikes an artery, right? This kid is coming down the steps, losing consciousness because he's bleeding out. Officers get there. 2 Eastway officers get there. Officers Chad Henderson and Officer Michael Summerfield. They get out there, spring right into action as this kid's, losing consciousness rapidly, pull out a tourniquet, apply a tourniquet to this young man. And you know what? They saved this kid's life. Hero this, hero that. We hear that all the time, right? That word thrown around quite a bit. These are heroes. These are heroes, and I think we'd be a little bit irresponsible not to mention the work that these 2 guys did last night. I'd love to say that it's a one-off, but these are the kind of things that happen all the time, and maybe we have to be a little bit better from a profession at communicating them. I mean, nothing short of amazing work, and Officers Henderson and Summerfield ought to be commended. And I know where this is going, and we're working on that. They both third shifters. They're back in tonight, and we're making arrangements to see if we can't get them available to the media. Wanted them here this morning, but apparently even heroes have to get some sleep, and that's exactly what these 2 guys are doing this morning, is getting some well-deserved rest after a tough night on patrol in that Eastway Division. Just wanted to dovetail a little bit off that. Nobody in custody on that case. Have no way to know if this was the intended home or if this was some type of stray bullet. That's something that our folks are investigating right now. Have not had any prior issues recently out at that particular home. We're asking anyone in the community who may have information concerning that to call our Crime Stoppers tip line, 704-334-1600, or call 911. This is bad stuff. This could have really turned tragically last night.
There was another shooting earlier this morning, I guess, on the other side of town. Probably no way related, but another shooting to occupied dwellings. There have been a number over the last week. You guys have talked about it. This is just, what's going on?
Yeah, haven't been able to determine whether those, any of those are connected at this point, but concerning nonetheless, right? Anytime that a home is shot into, especially when you have 4 children in this one on East Crest. I mean, this really could have turned bad. A lot of you don't have to go back far. You can go back to December of 2017. We had, what was that? That was over on Leek Street. You had 2 young men, Jeremiah and Darrell Irvin, right? 9 and 11 years old, sleeping in their bed when somebody shot into a window and injured both of those boys. Thankfully recovered physically, But good golly, I mean, if this doesn't rise to the level of concern, I don't know what does. In that case, $5,000 reward on that Leak Street case being offered through Crime Stoppers. I will say that we're communicating now with the Crime Stoppers Board, trying to get the ante upped in the East Crest Drive shooting from overnight. No way to say if they're connected though at this point, Mark.
Any updates on how the 12-year-old is doing who was shot?
On the mend, I understand that he's expected to live, and again, that's due in large part to some of the heroic work of Officer Henderson in Summerfield last night.
He's still in the hospital?
I will check. I don't know his status if he's been released as of yet.
Is it likely that there will be, I'm changing pace, is it likely there will be any charges in the death of the Olympic student from yesterday? Or is that pretty much a closed case?
No, it's not a closed case. It's still a current investigation with our major crash unit, working closely with CMS police right now, working to determine the circumstances, the specific circumstances out there, and no charges have been filed, but this is still a very active investigation.
That Olympic case is one example of many significant increase in deadly crashes in Charlotte. Why such an increase, do you think, just generally? Are we seeing this?
Yeah, I think it would be irresponsible to put any kind of single factor at play there. I would suspect that, you know, there's a lot of different things that factor into these equations, and you know, every single one of these cases is different and offers its own set of unique circumstances and dynamics. You know, this one, it appeared as though the, you know, speed wasn't a factor. This little girl was just, you know, trying to get on the school bus. You know, 15 years old when she was tragically hit and killed. The driver remained on the scene. Still an active investigation, and I suspect that our major crash unit, along with CMS police, or they'll get to the bottom of this and determine exactly what occurred and whether any charges are appropriate.
Can you elaborate on what was meant when you guys said you're investigating the bus stop location, the bus pickup location? What does that mean exactly? You're investigating the bus pickup location?
Yes, that's something that our investigators are looking into from major crash unit to determine where it was at the bus stop, specifically where the bus was scheduled to stop. I don't know anything beyond that extent at this point. Jane, you had something?
Rob, does that bus stop location need to be moved so that students do not have to cross that busy, dark road?
Yeah, that's not something for me to say. I'm not familiar enough with the layout over there. I suspect some smarter people than me are looking at that as we speak, and I suspect that's a decision and a question you'd probably have to ask CMS.
What is the role that CMPD has in getting these number of deadly crashes down? And would you like to see the city do any new initiatives or do anything to try and get these crashes down?
Yeah, we work hand in glove with the city, with DOT, all of the players involved in things like this, and this isn't anything, decisions like that aren't, you know, changing bus routes or speed limit signs or speed bumps or more traffic lighting and more crosswalks and pedestrian paths. That's not anything that we can do unilaterally, but we have a very prominent voice, I'd say, when those decisions are made by whatever agency does make those decisions. It's a collective thing, and we have a pretty strong voice at the table on what our recommendations are. So it's nothing we do on our own unilaterally, but we have a say, and we have recommendations that we offer.
Rob, does the CMPD work with CMS in locating bus stops and something that there's a dialogue about if officers see something that's dangerous? Are they in touch with CMS about updating them or moving them or things like that?
Yeah, I don't know the extent of our involvement, but that's something I can find out for you.
Going back to the 12-year-old that was shot, whether this was the intended target house or not, how terrifying is it that a house with 4 kids inside was just shot up last night?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get any more grave than something like that, right? You know, regardless of, you know, if this is an ongoing dispute between a couple of parties, I mean, irresponsible, I mean, reckless, I mean, I don't know how you would characterize it, but I'll tell you what, that kid's lucky he's alive this morning. You know, the kid's lucky he's alive this morning. That bullet, after it went through his arm, lodged into his pillow. This kid was in his bedroom, listening to music on a telephone. Now, if you're not safe in your own home just before 10 o'clock at night, sitting on your bed in your bedroom, listening to music, this is serious stuff. Someone in the community knows something. You know, I'm encouraged to know that you have some of the best investigators in the world that are working on this thing. Come on. I mean, reckless, dangerous, irresponsible. You fill in the blanks. It's just senseless, and it's got to stop.
And you said no previous incidents in this particular area that you've been responsible?
No, not on East Crest, and certainly not at this particular home. Again, 2 adults, 4 children. One of the children as young as 8 inside that home.
In that Olympic case, can you release the victim's name?
We have not?
No, sir, it wasn't in the release yesterday.
Yeah, we have not.
Okay, got it.
Will that be coming today?
I don't know if it is going to be coming today. I believe it's a juvenile, if I'm not mistaken.
I thought usually if someone was dead, we got the name.
I'll check in on that for you, Jane. Believe it's a juvenile, and I just figure.
You have in the past.
Yeah, we'll work offline and we'll get it figured out.
Situation or something.
Any progress with the officers' pay?
No progress with the officers' pay. A lot of conversation, still encouraging conversation. Nothing official in the way of progress, but I think, well, you know what, I strike that. I think there is some progress there. I think that the conversations are moving in the right direction from what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing from 30,000 feet. I know that this is front and center for city officials, and they're listening intently. Again, you had a display out there this past Monday night, a good sizable number of officers who were out there, along with some community members who were seemed supportive of a raise for the officers. You know, they've got some tough decisions to make in councils. You know, I wouldn't want to be anybody sitting on that body right now. That's tough. You know, you have people who are pretty resolute in the fact that they're having a tough time making ends meet. But then, you know, your city, a city official, you have the responsibility, the daunting responsibility of being responsible with tax money and making decisions. I'm encouraged that they're listening. I'm encouraged things are moving in the right direction, and I'm encouraged that things are going to work out just fine.
Rob, would you characterize it as a pay issue, or I know the chief said recently that it's perhaps more of a benefits issue. Does higher pay make up for benefits, or would you like to see more benefits?
Well, I think it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You know, they saw an increase in the money that they are responsible. They're on the hook for paying out when it comes to their benefits, and they believe that they're not compensated appropriately. So I know that there's a couple of things, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds and in any way, shape, or form get in the way of the process, but there are a couple of different things that are being looked at. Pay, benefits, the STEP program with the pay scale, there's a number of things that are on the table.
Rob, on the bus stop issue, what we're understanding from CMS is that even though people have told us they've complained about that area, that in the last 2 years, there have been no complaints filed with CMS about that location. How important, if people see something that's unsafe, lighting, you know, no crosswalk, students standing out there in the dark, how important is it for people to speak up?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. They're the ones who live in these neighborhoods. They're the ones who are taking their children back and forth to these schools. You know, we'd encourage anyone, if they ever feel that there's something that needs to be addressed with lighting, with traffic concerns, you know, with safety, you absolutely have to speak up. I don't know what has been recorded in the way of any official complaints from the community, but yeah, I think that's exactly what community members should be doing. You know, we really rely on community members to do that kind of thing. We good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. And stay tuned for those photos. We're working that out as we speak, I understand. No, we didn't. That was probably him calling, though, a couple of minutes ago. Appreciate the time.